Republicans came home to the party in the sense of the voters, but the president-elect must also bring together Republicans on Capitol Hill, even if some of his policies aren't Republican orthodoxy. So, is it possible, especially on an issue like trade reform? Former Massachusetts Senator and Trump supporter Scott Brown joins us, along with Matt Makoviak, who served as communications director for former Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson and has been, well, shall we say, Matt, staunchly anti-Trump. Matt, it might be worth, just before we get into this, to revisit your Twitter account from Tuesday evening. Quoting from it now, "You win particular credit for running the most inept, unserious presidential campaign in a century, staffed by clowns wasting money." And it continues. "If you had any class," I guess you're speaking to Donald Trump here, "you would slither back to Trump Tower and spend the next year apologizing to everyone you offended. Forget politics." Matt, he won. He's now president-elect of the United States. As a Republican, as someone who's served on Capitol Hill, are you ready to apologize, move on, and try to come together, or you still have some hard feelings?
No, I don't have hard feelings, and I didn't know you'd be bringing that up, but I think it's fair. I've apologized and deleted those particular comments. Those are based on the exit polls, which we now know were wrong, which came out and showed at the time it looked like Trump was going to lose every battleground state and the Senate was gone. Luckily, he did win, and I think that is a good outcome. There's a chance for Republicans to unite and have a very successful first 100 days, passing tax reform, repealing and replacing Obamacare, putting a conservative on the Supreme Court, building up the national defense. These are all really important things that can now happen. And so the election was extremely successful for Republicans. 52 Republican senators, 33 Republican governors, at least 238 members of the House. This was a very good election night for Republicans, and you have to give the Trump campaign a lot of credit. I don't agree with everything they did, but you have to give them a lot of credit for the outcome and the way they were able to win this particular election with a lot of powerful forces working against them.
Scott, I'm interested as you hear Matt's words here, which are, I would say, conciliatory and mature, to say the least. But are you hearing the same thing from other never-Trump elements of the Republican Party? Obviously, we heard from Mitt Romney, who tweeted out saying that he wanted to bring the party back together and sent best wishes to President-elect Trump. Are you hearing other folks come out and say the same kinds of things?
Well, first of all, I know Matt. I like Matt. And Matt, thank you very much for, stepping up. And, yeah, we are Americans first, as our sitting president said, and we do need to move together. And, yes, I have noticed a market change with many of the never-Trumpers, many of the so-called establishment who recognize, yes, if it was not for him, Ron Johnson more than likely would have lost. Pat Toomey more than likely would have lost. And we'd be talking about a majority leader, Schumer. So we have an opportunity not only to add to that in the next go-around in 2018 and potentially get a supermajority, but also look at the Supreme Court choices. I think the first thing they should do is repatriate all that offshore money, upwards of a $3 trillion stimulus bill, and then look at tax reform, and then looking at Obamacare. It's a no-brainer. You can keep the pre-existing care. You can keep keeping a kid till 26. You can do the catastrophic care and coverage. There's a lot of things you can do, and it's going to take everybody on board to actually do it.
Matt, to that point of everybody coming on board, there are policies of Donald Trump's that he talked about over and over on the campaign trail that are pretty opposite of Republican orthodoxy, certainly things about free trade and protectionist trade policies. Is this something that Republicans can get over and are willing to support the president come January 20th on, or do you think there's going to still be the Republican infighting between sort of the values issue versus the populist campaign that Mr. Trump ran?
Yeah, that's a great question, Leland, because honestly there are areas where there's a lot of agreement, but there are a couple areas where there isn't agreement. And so a lot of this is going to depend on exactly what kind of president Trump chooses to be. I was very encouraged on Wednesday by his meeting in the Oval Office and his comments with President Obama. I was very encouraged with his meeting and comments after meeting with Speaker Ryan and Senate Majority Leader McConnell. I think, as I said before, there is tremendous agreement on major issues. You're right, there's disagreement on some issues, and Trump may triangulate on an issue like trade, and he may pull Democratic votes or on perhaps an infrastructure bill, which he's talked with the Senate Minority Leader incoming Schumer about, and Nancy Pelosi as well. So the question is, can he keep Republicans united? Republicans, you started to unite before the election. Trump won about 90% of Republicans. The party is now fully united behind him. He is the unquestioned leader of the Republican Party. He's our president-elect. We're all praying for him, and we all want him to succeed because we want the country to succeed. But it's going to be a challenge at times on some of these issues to reconcile the comments he made and versus governing.
Yeah. Matt, I got to give Scott the last word here. And to that point, Scott, is now President-elect Trump ready to bring Republicans together? Or are we going to sort of see a hard line on infrastructure where he wants to bring in $1 trillion plan over 10 years, on trade where protectionist policies don't necessarily jive with Republican policies? Or is he going to move more towards an orthodox Republican, traditional Republican view?
Yeah, great question. And if you look at Canada and you look at Mexico, they are already coming to the table and say, yeah, we'll relook at NAFTA, we'll renegotiate, so that's a good thing. And there's nothing wrong with that if we get a better deal. And that's just by him being elected. And then if you're going to hit an infrastructure bill, we need to prioritize what those needs are. That's the key. You just can't throw the money out there and, all these pork projects. Come up with a specific prioritization of the actual issues, and then you'll get everybody together. So thank you, Leland.
Scott, you know better than I do what a hard rap means. Matt, appreciate it. Thanks, gentlemen. Good having you. We'll have you both back. Thanks, Liz.